Welcome back to Power Skills with Janna, the podcast that equips you with the tools you need to lead with confidence, to foster growth, and to thrive in both your professional and personal life. I'm Janna Jones, your leadership development specialist, coach, and mentor. Today, we are diving into a topic that everyone experiences, but not everyone feels prepared to handle: conflict. Whether it's in the workplace, at home, or within your community, conflict is a natural part of human interaction. However, unresolved conflict can lead to frustration, decreased productivity, and broken relationships. In this episode, we are going to explore how you can resolve conflict effectively. We'll talk about understanding the root causes of conflict, the importance of active listening, and strategies to find productive solutions that strengthen relationships rather than fracture them. Let's get started. Conflict arises for so many reasons: differences in values, opinions, expectations, or even misunderstanding. But what's important to understand is that conflict in itself isn't always a bad thing. When handled effectively, conflict can lead to growth, better solutions, and stronger relationships. Let's consider a few common reasons why conflicts happen. Miscommunication or lack of communication. This is always the case. It is one of the most common causes of conflict: miscommunication or assumptions based on incomplete information. When people don't feel heard or they feel misunderstood, they don't understand what's being said, this can lead to frustration. Differing values or priorities. When people come from different backgrounds and their values, beliefs, and their priorities sometimes clash. For example, one person may prioritize efficiency while another focuses on relationship building. That can lead to conflict or different approaches to work and life. Personality differences can also lead to conflicts in how people prefer to communicate, to work, or to resolve issues. For example, a direct communicator may clash with someone who prefers a more diplomatic or gentler approach. Competition for resources, whether it's time, money, or recognition. Conflicts often arise when people are competing for limited resources. This is especially common in the workplace, where teams are vying for project budgets or leadership support. Unmet expectations. Absolutely, without a doubt, especially when expectations are not clearly communicated or managed, disappointment can lead to conflict. This is often seen in both personal and professional relationships, when one party feels like the other hasn't really lived up to their often unspoken expectations. So understanding why conflict arises may help us to better navigate it when it inevitably occurs. But before jumping into resolution strategies, it is crucial to acknowledge the emotional toll that conflict can take. Conflict can evoke a range of emotions, whether anger, frustration, disappointment, or anxiety, which can cloud our judgment and escalate the issue if it's not managed properly. Start by recognizing emotional reactions, because the first step in resolving conflict is to recognize and acknowledge our own emotions in the situation. If you're feeling angry or defensive, it's important to take a step back, to calm down and avoid reacting impulsively. Understanding the emotions of others, being able to try and recognize the emotions of other people involved in the conflict, what they might be feeling. Empathy is such a powerful tool in conflict resolution because it helps you to approach the situation with compassion and understanding. And respond, don't react. Instead of reacting emotionally, respond thoughtfully. It's natural to want to defend your position or to counter what the other person is saying, what they're putting down in points. But in conflict, responding calmly and respectfully is key to moving forward productively. Now that we've acknowledged some of the causes of conflict and the emotional responses involved, let's get into the heart of resolving it, because there are some key strategies that may instead help you to navigate conflict in a constructive and healthy way. Always start with active listening. One of the most effective tools in conflict, in leadership and communication, especially in conflict resolution, is active listening. Sometimes people just need to feel heard and listened to, And not doing this can exacerbate the situation, so start there. As tensions run high, people in conflict situations can spend more time thinking about what they'll say next instead of really hearing the other person. Here's how to be a better active listener. Focus on the speaker without interrupting. Reflect on what you've heard to ensure that you've understood. Ask clarifying questions if necessary and show empathy by acknowledging their feelings. If this is a growth stretch for you, I have a whole episode on this because active listening really is key to so many different things. When people feel heard, they are more likely to approach the resolution process with an open mind. This helps to de-escalate tension and it opens the door to far more productive conversations. Seek out common ground. In any conflict, there's often more agreement than disagreement. You just have to find it. Even if you're on opposite sides of an issue, look for areas where your goals, objectives, or commitments align. For example, if you're in conflict with a colleague over an approach to a project, you might both agree that the goal is to deliver the best outcome for the client. And by identifying that common ground, you can shift the conversation from me versus you mentality to a collaborative and solution-focused dialogue. Keep the focus on the issue, not the person. It is so easy to let conflicts become personal, but placing blame or attacking another person instead of addressing the issue only escalates the problem. Use or encourage the use of I statements to express how you feel about the situation and how that affects the individual rather than placing blame. For example, instead of saying, "You never listen to me," try something like, "I feel really frustrated when I don't feel heard in our discussions." This approach prevents the conversation from turning into blame. Never play the blame game. It also keeps focus on resolving the issue at hand rather than placing judgment on another person. Stay solution orientated. It is so important to stay focused on finding a solution instead of dwelling on the conflict itself. Ask yourself and the other person involved, what can we do to move forward? This shifts the conversation towards constructive action. In many cases, both sides may actually need to compromise or be willing to meet the other person halfway to explore alternative solutions that address both parties' concerns. That is what is essential. Managing your non-verbal communication. These cues like body language, facial expressions, and tone of voice can send really powerful messages in conflict. Crossing your arms, rolling your eyes, or using a condescending tone can really fuel conflict, even if your words are actually neutral. Be mindful of your nonverbal communication and aim to project openness and respect. Maintain eye contact, use a calm tone, and avoid aggressive gestures. These signals will help to create a more positive environment for conflict resolution. As a leader in particular, you will inevitably face conflict within your team or your organization. How you handle these conflicts can make or break team dynamics, productivity, and morale. Never, ever ignore it. If I had $1 for every time that I heard a leader come into coaching with me and say, "But I was just really busy and I thought it would sort itself out," I would be independently wealthy by now. It will not sort itself out, and ignoring it exacerbates an already tense situation. In fact, ignoring conflict tells your people that you don't care about the negative impact this is having on them and your team. It's like adding fuel to a smoldering scrub fire and then wondering why the forest is burning down. Every single team and cultural intervention that I have been called in to support has started out this way. You are damaging your team efficacy and culture and the trust that they have in you when you ignore this. Do not do yourself or them that disservice. Let's consider instead some leadership-specific strategies for resolving conflicts. Foster open communication. Encourage open dialogue in your team by creating a safe space where everyone feels heard. If people feel comfortable bringing up their concerns early on, conflicts are less likely to escalate. Regular check-ins and one-on-one meetings can help catch small issues before they actually turn into bigger conflicts as well. Remember that mediation and facilitation may be required if it has gone on for too long. If two team members are in conflict, you may need to step in as a mediator. In this role, it's so important to remain neutral and to facilitate a structured conversation where each party has a chance to express their perspective. Help them to identify those common goals and guide the conversation towards a resolution that works for both parties. As a mediator, your main goal is to help them to solve the issue themselves rather than imposing a solution, although you may make recommendations where they are stuck. Model conflict resolution skills because your team looks to you for guidance on how they handle challenges. So by role modeling healthy conflict resolution strategies like active listening, empathy, and staying solution-orientated, you set the tone for how your team members should resolve their own conflicts. If you approach a conflict with patience and respect, your team is far more likely to follow suit. And always encourage collaboration over competition, because in highly competitive environments, conflicts can escalate really quickly. Encouraging a culture of collaboration where team members work together towards common goals instead of viewing each other as competitors create a culture of trust and mutual respect, reducing the likelihood of conflict. While conflict is of course inevitable, there are steps that you can take to reduce the chances of it escalating in the first place. Set clear expectations and communication, because misunderstandings often arise from unclear expectations. Whether in the workplace or in personal relationships, clearly communicating your expectations and making sure that the other party understands them can prevent many conflicts from occurring. Build strong relationships, because when people trust and respect each other, they are more likely to resolve conflicts quickly and constructively. Invest time in building strong and positive relationships with the people around you, whether they're colleagues, friends, or family members. Strong relationships create a foundation of goodwill that can help smooth over disagreements before they turn into full-blown conflicts. Address issues early on. I cannot stress this enough. Do not wait for a small problem to become a major issue. Address conflicts early before emotions run high. A simple conversation early on can really prevent a minor issue from spiraling into a larger conflict that becomes far trickier to deal with. While conflict is an inevitable part of life, it doesn't have to be destructive. By approaching conflict with empathy, active listening, and a focus on finding solutions, you can transform challenging situations into opportunities for growth and stronger relationships. So whether you're navigating conflict in the workplace or your personal life, remember that how you handle conflict says more about your character than the conflict itself. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today on Power Skills with Janna. If you have found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and leave a review, as it helps other leaders to discover the show. I'd love to hear your thoughts on conflict resolution, how you've managed it effectively, or perhaps what you might like to try back in the workplace. Please don't hesitate to connect with me on Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Power Skills Development. If you're looking for more resources or personalized support on conflict resolution or leadership development, visit www.powerskillsdevelopment.com to learn more about how we can work together. Until next time, stay empowered and remember that every conflict is an opportunity to grow and strengthen your relationships. Have a fabulous rest of your week.